So where did capitalism come from? And a lot of the people who were like the early capitalists were very smart bourgeois. Why wasn't it that bourgeois got together and they all collectively said, hey, we're going to work here. We're all going to collectively run this thing. Why was that not the model? Because that could have well been the model if literally collectively run enterprises were the best thing. Then why at the time when enterprises were just forming, why didn't collectively run enterprises dominate? Because literally the idea of like raising money for stock companies was non-existent and it was a completely new thing. Literally, there was no actual ideological position at the time of whether cooperatives or a top-down model would work. But the question is, why did the top-down model ultimately win out? And the only way they can answer this that's in a favorable way to them is they just have to say, no, literally, it was just the rich were a priority. They already existed. We have to assume there must have been these ultimate, like, rich bourgeois people who were just perpetually rich, and they were always in their status, or they just magically poofed and became rich one day. They just appeared out of thin air. It's like, that's just a really naive way of looking at it. It's obviously the best way to run these companies isn't a top-down model. Now, the thing ultimately is, as technology has gone on, we have allowed for some enterprises where it doesn't necessarily require a large chunk of management or overhead, things that can be very much done automatically. Then you could possibly have a co-op.
That's interesting. I'm always skeptical of collective management just because I don't see a lot of examples of it. It's like completely untested versus we already have a model that's, I would say, working extremely well. I would say hierarchical organizations work extremely well when all the conditions are right. Why fuck things up when we don't have to? But my biggest argument against collective work environments is just simple laziness. Like, and I mean that in the best way possible. Like, I don't think the average employee wants to concern his or herself with, management activities. It's a bore and it's a lot of work. The average person just wants to go home. So I would say workers benefit tremendously from, not having that stress to deal with.
So yeah, friend of the show, Miss Mega Jawline, also an ANCOM. I actually invited her to talk on about that book she sent us called The Capitalist System by Mikhail Bakunin.
I'm completely willing to talk to her. I'd love to talk to an ANCOM because I think I could maybe talk some sense into her. I very much sympathize with Marxist-Leninists and people like that. And I think, in the end, they're probably right. Although I hate to say it, I like to make as little change as possible while improving the lives of people as much as possible. But I think if we were talking about just pure raw efficiency economically, I would have to say that the Marxist-Leninists are probably right. But I can say for sure that the ANCOMs and the syndicalists and shit are wrong.
But anyway, so a key thing this person had brought up was this idea that, like, workers, they can just manage the production. You don't need to have a boss or anything like that. The workers can just choose somebody who's competent among them, and they can manage it for no more money than the workers would make.
Oh, I remember that part.
It was like right in the beginning. It's like, why would you want to have a boss? And so when you build the means of production, you need to allocate resources which are scarce. There's only so much to build the means of production. And it is also a matter of what percentage of your allocation is consumption. In the long run, consumption has to be below investment. This is still a problem, but we don't want to produce things that people don't want. When dealing with food, these things can be easy because we know how many calories people need, and most parts of eating habits are pretty consistent. So in theory, it would be not as hard to plan production of food around some extent. But let's just say, for example, to start a tablet computer manufacturing company or facility in some sort of anarchist or communist society. Does the community really have the authority to determine whether what we produce is necessary? Consider all the outright scams and feel-good projects that are given a large amount of resources by Kickstarter that literally have no chance of success and literally have no basis in reality, but still they attract millions of dollars in funding. People have this delusion that, like, the communities can just decide. Now, there's some people who literally just are basically, they don't want to admit it, but they're basically primitivists in the sense that they only literally care about, like, food, essentially. Like, as long as people have food, and I guess housing, then, like, some anarchists have literally said they don't think we'll be able to have the internet anymore because we just can't maintain the internet without exploitative capitalism. if your ideology says we cannot have one of the greatest inventions of mankind, then your ideology is complete trash.
I would disagree with you on one point. So I would say that anarcho-communism is dumb. However, I would say that anarcho-primitivists are honest, and that
I agree with
that. If that is what you want, then anarcho-primitivism, well, it would be unsuccessful for other reasons. But I would say that okay, the internet's great, and there are great parts of modern society, but I think we could have a long debate about whether or not advancing past hunter-gatherer societies was a good thing. I think one could argue easily that if humanity had stopped and continued to be hunter-gatherers, the planet would be much better off.
Unless you want to be a primitivist, anarchism doesn't really make any sense. In the sense, you need to have some sort of authority that literally decides that people sitting around who are experts in tablet computing, and what we have, they're called investors, who literally invest in, so we already have it. We've created this inside this expert group that have been chosen by the community and have a proven record of success because they have previously invested in companies that produce technology. They've gotten good returns, and they've been able to reinvest that money into companies that produce technology.
Yeah, so there are three options. Yeah, I mean, this is actually a good way to look at it. Under the anarchist option, how many tablet computers are produced and how they're produced is decided by the workers. Under the free market capitalist option, it's decided by investors. And under the centrally planned economy, either some kind of authoritarian version of capitalism or socialism, it's decided by a central planner. So obviously the anarchist option is out because that's dumb as fuck. And of course workers don't know anything about tablet.
They actually claim that capitalism will produce overproduction, and then they say that, if we just have anarchism, it won't lead to overproduction. But literally, I think anarchism would be the most environmentally disastrous thing because literally it would just lead to overproduction and terrible management of resources.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt, but you would never even get that far. Yeah, that's my problem with anarchism. You would never even get that far. Because somebody would come in with guns and kill everybody first.
Yeah,
you're never gonna get to the stage where you think about producing tablet computers because people will just be killing each other all the time.
If you have, for example, your little community, you can't just let people in your community. You have to have some sort of borders. I know you might disagree with this, but you might actually agree with in this case.
In anarchism, I agree with you. Yeah, in anarchism, you need to have closed borders.
But they were saying literally you don't have to have borders. I was like, okay, let's say I've immigrated from a really far away area that's really poor. I have no education. For our little anarchist commune society, you have to have a decent amount of education to be productive. But I want to join your society. Should I be allowed in? And they were like, of course, we have compassion. We have to. You're another human being. Why wouldn't we let you join our society? So I wouldn't be productive unless I get an education. It's okay, so we'll spend a few years educating you. It's well, what am I going to do between those times? Because literally there's almost nothing for me to do in terms of my productive capabilities. I'm going to need draining resources from you. And I'm just an outsider. What actual incentive do you have? Why wouldn't the community? And this person's well, because we're human beings, we're empathetic. And I tried to put it like this. Okay, this is Miss Mega Jawline, our friend of the show, sent us the Mikhail Bakunin book. It's okay, so why don't you literally have sex with every man who propositions you? And she got really offended by it. Because literally my whole entire point was you can't just let everybody in if you're giving away free shit. It's going to lead to freeloaders. If you literally accept proposals to have sex with every man, literally people just be like, this person will literally have sex with anybody and just literally get abused. It's what you're literally arguing for is essentially rape. So you literally have to accept everybody in. The alt-right's conception of cuck-servative, you're literally conforming to what they consider cuck-servative. In the sense that, the idea of calling people cocks who support immigration, you're literally embodying that. Because you're saying that literally not only should we let everybody in, but we should literally just give them everything unconditionally. It's literally called being cocked or raped.
Sure. In an anarchist situation, if you just let anybody in, my question for anarchists always is well, look at all the riots and shit that happen even in societies with strong governments, right? These riots, if we look at Detroit or LA, Well, we can talk about capitalism and the role of that. But, nevertheless, in an anarchist society, it's not like it's going to be super prosperous at first. People are going to be lacking some of the resources they need to survive. And how are you going to quell a riot? How are you going to stop a riot? How are you going to stop people from stealing stuff? What are you going to do? Well, you're going to have to shoot them, or you're going to have to, put them somewhere in a prison or whatnot. Well, now you've just created a police force, okay? And you basically, automatically you've created state power in your little anarchist commune. Because somebody steals a loaf of bread, is past his share. You're going to do something with him, right? You're going to either kill him or you're going to arrest him, put him in a little pen, whatever. But you've already created the state. Now this anarcho society has a state. I don't understand how it's a stateless society. You've already created a state. Well, because then the next thing that happens is, okay, you put this guy in a pen. Well, now everybody else gets in a circle and you vote on how long he's going to stay in the pen. Well, now you've created democracy. So, just from the start, there's no such thing as an anarcho-communist society. There's no such thing as any anarchist society because, like has been said for thousands of years, man is a political animal,
If it literally is anarchistic, it's literally Hobbes' state of nature.
Yeah.
That's the only anarchist society. But what they literally deny is they deny game theory. Because what you're actually arguing is you're talking about game theory, actual strategies of what is efficient and what is rational. Now, some people may say that there's a problem with rational, choice theory. And that people always make rational choices. And that's fine, For game theory to work, you don't have to necessarily assume people always make rational choices. What you do have to assume is that generally people will tend to make more rational choices than not, at least.
Mm-hmm.
You can at least describe human behavior with the idea that people will act somewhat in some sort of self-interest. And they literally denied the idea that people operate in self-interest, that game theory models apply. What we did right there was basically just game theory. We sat down and let's kind of look at what are the decisions people can make. Even when I brought up the idea of you're just denying game theory, and then it's quotation marks game theory, because that's a totally valid idea. I was like, yes, it is. It's a completely valid idea. It's very important.
They should just put the triple parentheses around it. Then they'd be the alt-right.
Yeah, game theory and Jewish pride.
Gosh.
Yeah, there's this YouTuber called Mexi who I've been watching, who's a leftist YouTuber. She's a doctorate in geography or something like that. She had made this video about the tragedy of commons. And literally, I think she even missed the point of the tragedy of commons. I thought this is the most retarded response to the tragedy of commons, because I've literally heard a decent response to this already a million times. And basically the entire point was the reason why the tragedy of commons is complete bullshit is that it assumes that people can't cooperate. That's the point, though, of the actual thing is literally the solution to the tragedy of commons. Either you have people agree to have private property, or they have a state to manage it. That's the way you do it. You have to have some sort of body to manage disputes. You have a property system, or you have a state ownership system, where then you can enforce certain rules, and then you can cooperate in an effective manner. The idea essentially that, people can just freely graze in the land. And that, of course, it's literally that is the point. The solution is you cooperate. But how do you cooperate? You cooperate through private property or state control. It's literally you miss the fucking point of the thing. And you're literally a PhD in geography.
Is she an ANCOM or what?
She doesn't have an ideology. She's just I'm a general leftist because, people in academia, we just read everybody and, whatever. So she literally espouses no ideology except general leftism.
Okay. So kind of like me, except she's an idiot. But okay, a random idea just popped in my head. Yeah. I think we should do a purge, okay? We have a purge. We kill every ANCOM and any leftist who cares more about good feelings than rationality. So basically we create an anarchist society for 12 hours. We kill all of these people because that's, of course, the result of anarchism, right? What else is going to happen in anarchism? People are just going to kill each other. And these people are idiots, and they probably don't own guns, so we can just kill all of them. So then once all these people are dead, we bring back all the world governments. And now we have people on the right who care about freedom and markets. And people on the left, now the only people on the left now will be people who care about rationality. And people on the left will want organizations to be run rationally, while people on the right will want them to be run with minimum government and maximum freedom. So, because I think the left needs to be about rational direction of, resources.